Chapter 10. The House of Living Rooms. With each step, the rolling stones and grass of the blue brick road tickled our bare feet, releasing a warm, welcoming feeling. With the morning sun hugging our skin, we hiked several miles. We relaxed and took in the view, still buzzing from the massage. The path opened out into pasture land, where a lovely mansion sat waiting. We knew it was our home. We stopped walking and stood on the blue path, letting it take us up to the driveway where we stepped off. The path rolled on. The driveway was long. The mansion was like a small compound with many levels and interesting architectural sections. As we got closer, we could feel that the whole house was made of live, pulsating cells. We walked up on the front porch, and we were greeted by pots of plants singing soft summer songs. The front door opened. We felt the angels before we saw them. The house was beyond amazing. A large foyer opened up into an even larger living area, lined with solid glass panels, looking out over the backyard grounds and a lake. The kitchen was off to the right of the great room. The walls of the kitchen were pearlescent and glowing. Everything beckoned, called, and welcomed. Several hallways with many doors branched off from the main foyer. The same sign hung over every hallway entrance. The hallway of 100 doors. I could see some of the signs on the doors that went on forever down extensive hallways. We wandered part way down just a few. Some hallways led to bedrooms, guest rooms, dressing rooms, ballrooms, and more. The rooms held so many different things to do and learn, like painting, sculpting, and photography. The activities went beyond creative arts and into all services, sewing, fabric making, gardening, and on to no end. There were fine art rooms, craft rooms, pottery rooms, and many different styles of music and dance rooms. There were classrooms for various subjects, many I had never even heard of. I decided to go into a few. When I walked in, I discovered I already had some ability in any skill I wanted to try and could quickly grow and learn more. There was no end to the growing and learning. I realized by impression that all of the neighboring mansions were like this. Though each was unique in design, people would go from house to house whenever they wanted and try any number of things together, learning and teaching one another with the angels and heavenly beings. For all eternity, we could move through new levels of learning, teaching, and creating in endless discovery in our own homes. I went down a music hallway with signs on the doors that said, "Play music," "Make music," "Be music," another sign, "Feel music," another, "See music," "Taste music," and one that said, "All 5 senses music." I opened the door for play music and walked in. Familiar and unfamiliar instruments were strewn all around. I could pick any one of them up and play it masterfully. Once I started playing the instruments, I could not stop. Many angels arrived to join me. Some used the instruments in the room, and some brought their own. We were lifted up on the moving symphony of sound and blown around the room. Talk about fun! We can only dream of music like this on earth. Or do we? This music was beyond my dreams. It began to overtake the house. Cameron joined us and played an ancient song that caused the living walls to vibrate with familiar joy. We all joined into his song. A feeling came over us as if the whole universe was moving to this music. In the middle of this activity, I spied a small opening in a wall under a window and went to look through it. It was a very small door. This part of the house was on stilts over the lake. You could crawl right out this door and fall into the lake, which of course I did, diving straight down into the cool water, down into the depths where I swam like a bird, breathing underwater, gliding through the crystalline liquid. I could still hear the sound of the music piping into the lake, humming all around me. Breathing and flying underwater felt familiar to me. I remembered it from my dreams on earth. We really don't know what it means to be made in His image, but we will all find out someday. As I was sailing through the water, I ran straight into a very friendly dolphin. He offered me a ride, which I excitedly accepted. Another dream come true. Heaven is where dreams come true. Many of our earthly dreams are really glimpses of heaven, even daydreams. Many of them can be glimpses of hell, but we're not going there right now. We rode at the top of the living water like we had been together forever. We played for hours or days, not caring about time as usual. Time was motionless movement, urging us to just be. As we were diving in and out of the lake, I saw Jesus sitting on the shore in a cove with children gathered at His feet and some hanging from the tree above Him. "Let's go see what Jesus is doing," I said. I swam to shore and walked up to where Jesus was talking. Dolphin lay in the shallow water, basking in the sun where he could hear. "We are all guests in heaven on earth, in the universe," Jesus was saying. I remembered His knock on the great door of the Tower of Weaponry. Guests of our Father's creation. Where I went on earth, I was invited. Where I was not invited, I passed through. A wise one knows when the time is up and leaves despite conflict and pain. The kingdom is easy access once you master the knocking. Not many knock, not many enter. Many rush in without knocking. Many rush into kingdoms not meant for them, through doors that require no knocking, through trapdoors leading to every kind of evil and pain. I knock, you knock. We discern our knocking in seasons and timing. At times we knock walls down between my people and my kingdoms. At times we knock as guests. At times we knock down powers of darkness. Would you be a wise knocker? Dolphin picked up a stone with his fin and threw it at a tree, making a loud knocking sound. The children and I jumped up to gather thick pieces of wood and rocks. We all began knocking on our wood pieces with our rocks, louder and louder, until it sounded like 1,000 woodpeckers. Soon the woodpeckers joined us too, and the chorus of our knocking drew others from their homes to knock along with us. We all knocked with anything we could find. I could see by the Spirit that the sound was opening portals over earthly kingdom events throughout the nations. Our intercession was rending and moving things under the watchful eye of Lyon, whom we could now sense in the afternoon sky. A poem came to me, and I spoke it out. Knock, knock, open the portals of pure flow, Father Lyon, from your home. Allow your tangible, glorious light to touch down from your throne, as we knock and see it pour in spirit, crystal flecks through dark tunnels, like a spray of stars burning down the night, moving at incomprehensible speed, yet slowed to wrap around these places on your treasured earth, where you wait for your image to be seen in us. Knock, knock, magical, mystical openings open, to rain your effervescent power spoken into promises unbroken, sometimes tapping, sometimes pounding, always prayer in motion. We do not stop. Knock, knock. We all heard Lyon's booming voice echo above us. Be with me, and when you knock, I open. When you ask, I hear and give. When you seek, I lead you to the treasure I myself buried in your heart. It is always my desires that are unlocked, so knock. Dolphin took me back to the music room door. Cameron was dancing in full armor to the glorious sound that had escalated as more people and beings were added to the pounding mix. I could hear what Cameron and others had already heard, the faint roar of Lyon mixed with the thudding in the distance, echoing through the neighborhood valley. Apparently our knocking had opened a call to arms. It is time for kings and queens to go out to war, Lyon echoed. Instinct guided me directly to the armor room, where my armor was waiting. The Hoplon angels had delivered it after it was cleansed in the tower of weaponry. Some of them were there to help me suit up. My armor was repaired and polished to a bright gleam and looked brand new. Jade and Spirit were waiting in the front yard in full war regalia, glinting in the sun. Cameron walked up just as Shadow came bounding up the walkway and into my arms. She turned very serious as Jesus rode through the yard on an albino horse. It was a terrifying sight. He came as we had never seen him, the Lord of the hosts himself, a fearsome warrior beyond the mightiest of all mercenaries. Cameron and I bowed before him. Jade, Spirit, and Shadow went down on their front legs. It was hard to raise our heads to look at him. I tried to peek out from under my hands, squinting in his brightness. He was whiter than white, hair, skin, and clothes, as light was in and all around him. The only way to describe it is that this color of white was made of light, and the light was made of white. His feet were like molten gold, glowing and pulsing with power. His eyes, nose, ears, and mouth were sockets of beaming light. He was frightening to look upon. He looked very young, as somehow his features could still be distinguished in the blinding glare, but his youth was not the human kind. Both his terror and his love could be felt together. He held a white-hot staff blazing with fire on both ends. His ghostly horse had dancing eyes full of intelligence and wisdom that spat sparks on us as we looked up. He looked right into us. It was arresting and quite uncomfortable. Neither Jesus nor his horse wore armor. The light seemed to be their armor, and at the same time it permeated them and surrounded them. It was who they were, pure, white, luminescent power. Jesus turned and motioned for us to follow. We got up with effort under the radiant weight of his aura. We mounted and followed him on the path to the tower of weaponry. As we made our way back down to the tower, our trusted army joined us. They had heard the call and made their way from many realms. We greeted our captains and their wives and were all strengthened by the reuniting. They told us they had heard the knocking and could see Jesus, Lord of host glory, streaming out everywhere. They had ridden in under the force of it. The glory called to them. We were all still bent under the weight of it as we followed behind his dazzling presence. We arrived at the tower of weaponry and rode our horses into a warehouse where the rest of our weapons, tools, and tackle were waiting. They had been rejuvenated and repaired like our armor. Our weapons were once again vibrating in anticipation of the approaching war. They were singing this paragraph in a clamor of choruses, not exactly together, yet with a totally unified sound. We are smashing warped philosophies, tearing down barriers built against the truth of God, destroying speculations and every lofty thing raised up against the knowledge of God, fitting every loose thought, emotion, and impulse into the structure of life shaped by Christ. We are ready at hand for clearing the ground of every obstruction and building lives of obedience into maturity. Cameron shot off a few arrows, and each one sang a new song when he fired it. He fired a few shots from his freshly polished gun, and they rang out the names of God: El Shaddai, Elohim, Abba, King, Lord, and Yah. My sword and knife sounded out fresh songs as I practiced slicing the air. I now had 8 leaves on my handle as I prepared for the next crusade, and they sang out, creation waits for the return of the King. No fear, as the refrain stings the air and strikes the enemy, and the nations are healed. Jesus waited, throbbing white, as we refamiliarized ourselves with our weapons and tools. Then we followed him up into the sky as the sun was setting, our army close behind. We all looked down on the enchanting valley with its houses, lakes, and fields of moving colors. It was resting between majestic mountain peaks stacked in the distance. Rivers snaked through the paradise, winding into oceans far away. Everything seemed to be waving and praying us on to victory. We knew the valley would be watching for our return.